Hello, and thank you for joining this Caterpillar Safety Services webinar titled Safety Culture Transformation, Strategies for Achieving Excellence. I'm Abby Sansler with Caterpillar Safety Services, and I will facilitate today's webinar. And before I introduce our presenter, I have a couple of announcements. First, to ensure everyone an enjoyable listening experience, all participant phone lines are muted. However, we do encourage you to submit questions and comments for our presenter. You can do so using the chat or the Q&A sections of WebEx. Those will go to me, and we will use the final 10 to 15 minutes today for Q&A with Brett. Also, this event is being recorded, so following the webinar, you will receive an email with a link to the recording and a PDF version of Brett's presentation slide deck. Now, let me introduce our presenter. Brett Haskins serves as Caterpillar Safety Services Consulting Manager for the Asia Pacific region. He is a certified safety professional with more than 20 years of experience working with executives to frontline employees to build and sustain cultures of safety excellence. Brett has worked with Caterpillar facilities, CAT dealers, and external customers all over the world to successfully implement environmental health and safety management systems driven by employee engagement and accountability. Today, he will share with you the tools and strategies Caterpillar Safety Services uses to help those customers achieve operational excellence through safety culture transformation. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Brett.
Thank you, Abby, and thanks for everyone for joining the conference today. And hopefully everyone can hear me just fine. And we will just, without further delay, we'll get started into the presentation. As we talk about Caterpillar Safety Services, a lot of people do not relate Caterpillar with safety services. CAT is a big equipment company, makes heavy equipment all over the world. And so I want to give you a little bit of background about who Caterpillar Safety Services is and why Caterpillar Safety Services is a good choice to help improve safety culture. About 3.5 years ago, Caterpillar purchased a small consulting company based out of Portland, Oregon. That consulting company was named Core Media, that's C-O-R-E. And Core Media had been in the safety cultural consulting business for about 30 years. And so with that transition, Caterpillar has taken safety services processes and ingrained them into Caterpillar on a strategic basis in various facilities throughout the world. And part of what we do is we help champion your enduring success, whether you are Caterpillar, whether you are a dealer, or whether you're an external customer of ours. We do have a wide variety of service offerings. As I mentioned, we have 30 years of experience doing safety cultural consulting work, and we have about 13 consultants, one of which I am based in Australia, Melbourne, and the other are based in North America. And in Caterpillar's own safety journey and the experience that we've had through the journey ourselves over the last 10 to 12 years of improving success within Caterpillar. The slide you're looking at now is a results slide, lagging indicator only, slide for Caterpillar. And back in 2003, there was a big initiative to improve Caterpillar's performance. Part of that strategic initiative over the last 10 to 11 years has also been to improve the culture within Caterpillar, thus the acquisition of a consulting company to help Caterpillar along its journey. And you can see there's been pretty substantial improvements within Caterpillar, from one of the worst in industry to one of the best in the world. And that's gone through various stages and various strategic initiatives from a safety perspective. In that time, it's been about 44,000 injuries have been prevented within the Caterpillar organization. And so, as I mentioned about CAT, not a lot of people associate Caterpillar with safety services. It's generally the iron and the technology that we bring. But as we've worked with customers over the years, as Core Media and the last 3.5 years with Caterpillar, we have been able to identify that safety solutions go way beyond the iron and the equipment. And to represent that, the following slide shows kind of a four-dimensional viewpoint of safety, from whether it's a customer of ours or whether it's an internal account or whatever it might be. We have the equipment and the technology. That's more of the conditions of the workplace. We have the behavior of the operator and how safe they operate the equipment. That may include the training that they have, excuse me, as an operator. We also have the job site, the working conditions, the layout of maybe haul roads at a mine site or at a quarry site, or maybe it's a manufacturing facility, and the layout of the work environment definitely are parts of safety excellence. But the part that brings all that together is the culture. And throughout the years of doing this work, we've recognized that without the culture, the things that we do and the processes and procedures that we have to make safety effective are limited in their success. And so through building a proper culture, you're able to maximize all the programs and procedures, and something we learned from working with Dr. Dan Peterson years ago. Another way to look at that is you see the matrix is from a Caterpillar standpoint, the dealers, employees, the capabilities, Caterpillar's enterprise capabilities you see in the yellow on this chart, and the cultural pieces you see in the gray, the things that Caterpillar Safety Services can help bolster and improve and assist you on a journey to safety excellence. This chart will probably be familiar, and I would ask you to think about your current culture within your organization. We call it the traditional incident reaction cycle. This cycle generally starts when an incident occurs, whether that is an injury, a property damage, a near miss, whatever the type of incident is that occurs. After an incident occurs, then management is responsible and accountable for reacting in some way. Sometimes that reaction is positive, sometimes that reaction is not so positive. Once management reacts, the traditional response in traditional safety cultures is we do a lot more of the same things that we've been doing. We put people through more training, or we write more rules, or we write more procedures for people to follow. And doing more of the same thing and expecting different results, we all know that that's the definition of insanity. And then before long, all those things that we did and all those activities that increased kind of dwindle away, the new wears off of them, and we kind of go back to business as usual. And then we don't know the time between the back to business as usual to the next incident occurring. And so we get caught in this vicious cycle of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And part of changing the culture is to basically impact the box that says management reacts and the box that says activities increase. That's where improvements in safety culture belong. We have to change the way we react, and we have to change what and how we do things based off incidents that occur, not just in a reactive measure, but also in a proactive way. A lot of times we focus on conditions, the work environment. If you remember the graphic that I showed you of the equipment, the operator, the job site, and the culture, three of those pieces focus on really the conditions of the work environment. Some of the operator might be behavior also. But we tend to focus a lot of our efforts on the conditions, when in reality, only about 10% of the incidents that occur worldwide are as a result of some type of workplace condition or the work environment. 90% of those are related to people's behavior. And so at Caterpillar, we don't talk about behavior-based safety per se. We talk more about a performance-based safety or an accountability-based safety. And the reason we look at that is because it's not just focusing on the behavior of the individual workers. We also need to focus on the performance and the behavior of leaders in the organization, the supervisors, the middle managers, the top management of the organization. Because nobody came to work today with the idea that they wanted to get hurt. But yet we still have people that take risk. And so we have to ask ourselves, why do people continue to take risk? They don't want to get injured, so why would they take a shortcut in the work environment that could or could not result in an injury? Our behaviors are all influenced by our attitudes, beliefs, and ideas. So the activities, the behavior, the performance of the leadership of an organization is what drives the attitudes, beliefs, and ideas of that organization. Those things normally result in the norms, the things we may call written rules or written policies, but there's also something that we see in most organizations that are unwritten. It's just how we do things around here. Maybe it's contrary to what the policy and procedure might say. So those things are how we define culture, and it shows how incidents are related to the actual culture. If you work in an organization and there has been an accepted practice for many years of doing a certain job a certain way, or maybe overlooking risk in order to meet production demands, and that's been an accepted practice by leadership of the organization, the frontline supervision in an organization, but yet there's an incident that happens, and because of that incident, we change the way we do things, and we are able to identify that this norm, this accepted practice, is the root cause of the incident. Traditionally, then we go make a rule. It says we're going to change the way we do things. We're going to change this. And then we stand back and we wait for people to accept that. But if they've been acting and performing and behaving a certain way for the last 15 years, just because we made a rule, just because we changed a policy, does not necessarily yield a change in behavior. So we'll talk about how to more effectively get acceptance to new rules, acceptance to new policies and procedures and processes within the safety arena. Because the idea is, if we start with a culture, rather than just making policies and rules, if we start by working on the culture and working on the norms and the beliefs, attitudes, and ideas of the organization, then we begin to affect people's, not only the way they walk, but the way they think and the way they behave and the way they believe about safety in the workplace. Those things yield to fewer people taking risk, which in turn yield to fewer injuries. And that's the only way that we can approach zero and hopefully get there at some point in time. So here's the depiction. People have seen the Swiss cheese model, and this is Caterpillar's depiction of that. Have to use some gears to make it look like a little bit of equipment. But all of the processes that we have, all the filters and the barriers that we have within safety, typically those processes and things are built and created by management or safety and health professionals. And then we hand those to our organization and we ask them to go do. Here it is, go do it. But yet we fail to involve them. And when we fail to involve the people that do the work, then there always are holes and gaps that exist in those things, those filters and processes and procedures that we have created to help keep people safe. And so when all of the gaps line up, just like you recognize in the Swiss cheese model, then that's when incidents occur. And so the idea around cultural change is to do as much as we can to involve the people that are closest to the risk in order to fill those gaps and to make those processes and procedures a little bit more effective. And within Caterpillar Safety Services, another way we depict that from an organizational level is I would ask you where you might be. If we focus on the 10%, if you're focusing on that 10% of the relationship between conditions and behaviors, then you're working at a level 1, level 2, where you are reacting to certain things, not just things that exist in the workplace, but you may be reacting to behaviors. We say that a behavior-based safety program that just focuses on employee behavior is a level 2 system. Because it doesn't do much to focus on the leadership's performance within that organization. And so level 3 is where we really build good, strong accountability systems. Level 4 is we look at what we believe. That's where we get into doing safety perception surveys, doing interviews with employees to really gauge the health of your current safety cultural reality. And then through that process, we begin to reach a level 5 where we are engaging our employees in helping to error-proof processes that lead to level 6. So if we do level 1 through 5 on a continuous basis is really how we reach to level 6. From Caterpillar Safety Services perspective, I want to now begin to talk about some of the things that we have available that you could use. Some are free of charge, some of them are not. Some of them are paid work that you would pay for Caterpillar Safety Services to come in and assist you with. But we have safety and information resources through safety.cat.com. We also have online training. We also have facilitator-led training. We have some job site safety consulting services, and we also have safety cultural solutions. I'm going to talk briefly about the first 3, and I'll spend the majority of this section talking about the safety culture solutions, which is really me unpacking the process and the continuous improvement cycle that we use within Caterpillar Safety Services to help organizations reach that level 6. and gain a high level of employee participation. So most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with safety.cat.com. There's a lot of information on there. Within Caterpillar Safety Services, we own and manage the content of that website. And I would ask that if you're a regular visitor to the website, or if you are an infrequent visitor, if you have ideas and tips on how to improve the website or would like to see additional information, please utilize the links within the website to send us information that helps us continuously improve that offering. But there's toolbox talks, there's videos, there is industry-specific related safety information. All of our equipment and the manuals and the virtual walkarounds and the inspections are all there for your use. Additionally, we have quite a few online safety training resources. We have a strategies for safety management, which is kind of a 10-course offering for supervisors. We have a lot of environmental health and safety, some different service trainings, and a variety of machine operator training that's available online. We also have training products that are available through the website, where you can go to the shopping link within the website and you can purchase specific training processes, programs that you can roll out into your organization. And the majority of those come with video content, a facilitator's workbook, participants' workbooks, those types of things. Large majority of those training products we can also come in and facilitate for you. We also have the ability to come in and do a train the trainer to train your your learning and development people, your supervisors, your environmental health and safety professionals, do a train the trainer for those individuals to be able to roll it out more effectively within your organization. And we have some job site safety consulting services also, where we can do site safety assessments. We can do audits of your environmental health and safety management systems, help you write job safety analysis. We have training programs from JSAs, all through HAZCOM, through ergonomics, and various other components that are available through our service offerings. And the last bit is the safety culture solutions that we offer. Whether it's a safety perception survey that was created through a 10-year study, whether it's doing on-site interviews and analysis, to creating strategic plans for organizations from a safety perspective, all down through all the different cultural workshops that we would perform and they would be facilitated on-site for your organization. So now the process to achieve safety cultural excellence, the things that we've seen in 30 years of doing this work the best and provide an organization the best opportunity to achieve maximum success when it comes to improving culture. It's a journey. It's not a sprint. And so the very first step in that process is the leadership of the organization has to engage in understanding what it takes to accomplish safety cultural excellence improvement. We have a facilitated workshop we call a leadership roundtable, in which we would engage the leaders of that organization, helping them to understand some of the safety culture principles, what it's going to take, the commitment that it's going to take not only from them, but also from the organization to do this effectively. And we help leaders understand, if you're looking for a magic pill, there's not one. There are various components and tools and resources and pieces that make up this continuous improvement model that first have to be supported through a committed leadership and then have to be owned and operated by those that are closest to the risk within your organization, which would be your frontline workforce. So after engagement of the leadership, we help them understand the things that I just described there on that slide and how to apply the different tools. Part of the journey that we want to take organizations on is helping you do this yourself. Our business model is not to engage with you for years and years and years. Most of our customers is a 3 to 5 year commitment to be able to really learn and organization to really adopt the practices and principles that we teach. And then we're able to step away as a consulting group and you take the processes and continue to implement them within your organization. And later on in the presentation, I'll show you a couple of success stories where some of our customers have been able to do that. We have a cultural model we call the 6 criteria for safety excellence. created by Dr. Dan Peterson. If you don't know who Dr. Peterson is, he was a 45-year safety professional in the U.S. He was also an industrial psychologist, but he practiced safety cultural consulting work for about 45 years of his career. And fortunate for us, when before we became part of Caterpillar, we worked with Dr. Peterson for many years and did some training products and some video products, some of which you may have seen if some organizations buy those products and use them internally. But through a lot of that work, Dr. Peterson found that organizations that got safety right in the short term and in the long term, and were able to sustain success over the long haul, they had some things in common. And he labeled those as 6 criteria of safety excellence. This is not going to be anything that's probably unfamiliar to you. But top management has to be visibly committed. Verbal commitment is not enough. Middle management has to be active. They have to be involved in the process. They have to be seen, and they have to be present and counted for in safety processes, just as they would be in production and quality and so forth. Frontline supervision has to be focused on their performance, not just employee behavior, but as much as they focus on their performance from a production and quality standpoint, the same should apply for safety. Employees are actively participating. The system has to have some flexibility. One size doesn't necessarily fit all. We live in a world of standardization, but standardization in some respects is good, but in some respects it's not so good. So we have to figure out what are the flexible components within an improvement initiative that an organization is going to undertake. And then the system has to be positively perceived by the workplace, by all of the workforce, from top management all the way down to the frontline workforce. And there are methodologies that we use to incorporate these 6 criteria into the continuous improvement process. And we help our leadership understand these things. The next step would be, once leadership engages and they agree, we want to go on this journey. We like it. It's what we want to do, and we know we need it. The next step would be to assess the current culture. Treatment without diagnosis is malpractice. So we need to identify what are the things in our organization currently that are done very well? What are the opportunities and things we need to improve upon? We do that through a safety perception survey and or interviews. Here's a screenshot of sample results of our safety perception survey. It's a 73-question survey created by Dr. Dan Peterson and Dr. Charles Bailey through a 10-year study. It can be done electronically or in a Scantron form, which you can see. It's anonymous, completely anonymous. We display the results from employees, supervisors, and managers. We can compare the results to our industry database from all survey takers through the inception of this survey. And it's broken down into 20 different categories. All 73 questions are mapped to those 23 categories. Each question applies to one or more of those categories. And really, it's an indicator of where are things that could be improved. What are the things that we really, really do well? If less than 75% of the organization is positively perceives a specific topic within the survey, then we say that's an issue and we need to address it. Anywhere from 76 to 89% is something that it needs attention, but maybe not immediate. And if we say if you have not more than 90% of your organization is agreeable and perceives it in a positive way, then it's something that is actually pretty good. We also do interviews to get the qualitative results. We look at the survey as a quantitative tool and the interviews as a qualitative tool. From that assessment, then we would begin to build a strategic plan within the organization. One of the things we found to work very well is to create a safety steering team within the organization and train that steering team in cultural principles so they become the subject matter experts within your organization. Then we work with them to create a strategic plan based off the assessment results. That looks like, what training are we going to do? How are we going to measure our improvement processes? What topics are we going to work on to improve? Who are we going to involve in our continuous improvement teams? What's the dates and the locations and all the things? from A to Z, what is our strategic plan? What results do we expect to see? Those type of things. And that's generally a 2-day event where we would train the steering team, and then we'd work for a day and a half to create the strategic plan for the organization. Once their strategic plan is created, then we begin to develop the tactical gains within the organization. That looks like 2 things. One is we develop leadership. We train them on how to be effective leaders. We also do executive coaching with that leadership to help them understand how their performance and their behavior needs to be within the organization. We'll walk the floor with those leaders and have conversations with the workforce, and then we'll sit down and have discussions with the leadership and really help them to strategically improve how they behave and how they lead. They're no different than a worker on the floor. If a manager or an executive leader has been operating in his or her organization for a certain way around safety for the last 15 to 20 years, just because they go through a training class and somebody tells them that they need to act differently and they need to start doing these type things, does not necessarily mean that they're going to go do them and do them effectively, because they have their own culture and they're used to doing things a certain way. And it's very easy for them to resort back to the way they used to do things, just as it would be for a frontline worker, a boilermaker that has taken shortcuts for 15 years to get his work done. And so leadership needs coaching and constant help along the journey also. All part of the developing these tactical gains is also running rapid improvement workshops. Based on this strategic plan, the safety steering team would then choose members for those rapid improvement workshops, and Caterpillar Safety Services, we would come in and facilitate the RIWs on a specific topic, maybe toolbox meetings, incident investigation, supervisor training, personal risk assessments like Take Fives or job safety analysis or workplace inspections, and fill in the blank with a process, not necessarily a thing, but a process around safety where you could see that the 6 criteria could be impacted. We can involve every level of the organization, and we could build good, solid accountability systems for every level of the organization. And you can create a process flow map for that safety process. That's generally the type of RIWs that we run, because it's only through experiences that people's beliefs and attitudes change. They have to see things differently. And as they see the leadership in the whole organization working and doing things in different ways, right, and by improving the way they work, then they begin to believe that this is real, that this is something that's going to stay. And our organization really does care about us as employees. So once we develop the improvements, then we work to implement those improvements on a pilot basis. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. The next step, one of the things that we work really hard during those rapid improvement workshops is to create the accountabilities for each level of the organization. You see the model for our accountability system. Define what people do, define how well they have to do it. Not ambiguous definitions around safety, which typically look like create and maintain a safe workplace. Don't have any injuries in your work environment. Very, very ambiguous. But we want specific definitions around a topic like safety meetings, what certain people in the organization have to do. We train them on how to do it and how to do it well. Measure their success, both quantitative and qualitatively, measures that we would identify through those rapid improvement workshops. And then what are the recognition systems that we would build in when people are successful? How do we recognize their success? Part of this process is to move away from the negative perception around safety to a more positive perception around safety. And if we only measure failure, i.e. incident rates, rather than measuring success, then we continue to harvest and seed that negative perception of safety if we're always looking at the negative side. So part of the accountability system is build good measurement systems and measures people's success and recognize them for it. Once we've done all that work in the rapid improvement workshop, high level engagement from the frontline workforce is generally who is involved, 7 to 9 people in an RIW. Most of those people would be frontline workers, and we may throw in a supervisor or a manager or one of your safety staff at some point just for be a communications specialist, could be part of it. Someone from an HR could be part of one of those RIWs. Once we've developed the improvements, then we would pilot implement those improvements. The Rapid Improvement Workshop team would select pilot areas, 3 to 4 locations within an organization where they'd want to pilot the improvements to see how well they worked. That generally is a 30 to 90 day pilot period, depending on the complexity of the system that we're improving. After the pilot process, we reconvene with the CI team, and we work on making modifications that we realize needed to happen from the pilot and the feedback we receive. And then we develop a communication strategy. We develop an implementation plan for the whole organization. And then we work with you as an organization to implement that system throughout your organization. And we measure results, which is the next step. We check to see how successful we are. Are we making progress? This continuous improvement loop that you see, we want to check and measure it. We generally would suggest doing a safety perception survey every 18 to 24 months. Additionally, each of the continuous improvement teams that you would facilitate, you would also have measures built into those teams. Those teams would be measuring their own success and the success of their improvements. And all of those things lead to a smorgasbord of leading indicators that we can measure that looks at what are we doing to measure the presence of safety versus traditional measures that only measure the presence or absence of accidents, because we know they're not necessarily, both of them don't measure. The absence of accidents doesn't necessarily equal the presence of safety. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there for a bit. So that's the continuous improvement process, and we would say do this on a continuous basis. We generally suggest organizations, when you start the process, no more than 2 or 3 rapid improvement workshops in a year's time, because you're not necessarily fixing a thing, a specific work area. You're trying to change culture throughout your organization, and that's a lot of change. And so you have to really communicate well, and you have to manage it the right way. And as I said earlier, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. If we try to do it too hasty, then we begin to miss things, and people end up having change fatigue set in an organization. And so we don't want that to happen. We want to maintain the momentum as we go forward. And that's the process. Obviously, there are some very specific details within the process that we don't have time to cover today. I'd be more than happy to cover those with you on a separate call. And you can check out safety.cat.com that has a little bit more detail. This specific process itself, there are some brochures and some one-pagers on the website that you can access that gives a little bit more detail to this process. And like I said, we can have conversations. And if you have any questions, please submit those. So a couple of other supporting components that we have for Caterpillar Safety Services is we provide a high level of communication support. What we're doing is continuous improvement and change management and project management kind of all coupled together. So it really requires some substantial communication efforts within an organization to help make it successful. And we have professionals on staff that will help your organization through that process. We also have the ability to create custom safety culture videos, things that we've been doing for years. All of our own personal videos that we have and the training products that you can get, we created those on our own, so we have a lot of expertise in creating videos. And we can help you tell your story to your organization. A lot of different training tools, and as I mentioned earlier, we can do train the trainer. Whether it's through a safety video product, whether it's facilitating the rapid improvement workshops, facilitating the leadership roundtables, or any of the training products that we have, we can do train the trainers for those projects. So a couple of customer success stories that I'll share with you, a large aggregate company in the U.S. and a utility company that we worked with in North America that have adopted the process for quite a few years and have seen some major successes. Aggregate company, 42% improvement over 8 years as through their measuring their lagging indicators, i.e. their injury rates. They have over 130 facilities, more than 4,000 employees, and a lot of their workforce is in and out project-based workforce. Electric utility company, improving 1.6 times faster than their peer organizations. And you can see they have over 9,000 employees. This is the success story for the aggregate company, just a map of where they operate in the U.S., the states they have operations in. And a very similar slide that you saw to Caterpillar's journey. This is their lagging indicator journey. And you can see we engaged with them initially back in 2004 when we did some START training, which is a video-based training product that we have for supervisors and managers. It stands for safety training, or supervisor training and accountability and recognition techniques. You see some of the changes they went through in their organization and how they've managed to improve their lagging indicator performance. As compared to their industry, they're pretty good. A quote from their president. They went a full quarter without a single lost time accident, first time in their 75-year history. Here's the utility company. And you can see their improvement. It's one of the dangers of just looking at lagging indicators. Both of these organizations have a limitless list of leading indicators that they also measure, which shows how they got to where they are. The danger of just looking at lagging indicators is you can see the spikes in this chart. And if you're only looking at the absence of failure, you're going to see this type of history. At some point, you're going to see spikes in the lagging indicators. But you can see from 2000 to 2012, they've made a pretty drastic improvement in their organization. In the last 7 years, when you get down close to 1, close to 0, you've already taken care of a lot of the low-hanging fruit, and you really got to work hard to improve the culture. And here's a quote from their CEO. Okay, just a couple other customers that we worked with throughout the world. Mainly in North America is where most of our work has been, but we've done work in South America. We've done work in South Africa, Australia, Europe, China. Over the years, we've done work in those different countries, and here are some of the organizations that are currently continuing their journey or starting their journey to safety culture excellence. And that would be it. So at this point in time, we would entertain questions that have come through the chat or the Q&A, and I'll read off the question and attempt to answer. The first question is the safety perception survey available in multiple languages? The answer to that question is yes. It is currently translated in 31 different languages, and those we can supply the list of languages that it's available in, but we have the ability to translate it into any language. But part of that process would be discussing with your organization and gaining commitment to move forward, and then we can have it translated and have it available in any language that we need it. Second question, what continuous improvement topics have been most successful at the beginning of a journey? Very, very good question. Part of the journey is identifying and creating some wins at the very beginning so people see the benefit. So we generally suggest to do something that's really easy to sustain some gains in, and you can have impact throughout the whole organization. Examples of those topics would be toolbox safety meetings or pre-start meetings, startup meetings, whatever you might call them in your organization. Very few organizations that we've worked with over the 30 years of doing this work, there's only very few that don't run a CI team on the topic of safety meetings. Because generally most people in traditional organizations, most employees don't think the meetings are good. A lot of times supervisors just read off of pieces of paper. They talk about things that don't apply to the work. And sometimes those meetings turn into production meetings instead of safety meetings. So pre-start meetings, personal risk assessments is a very frequent topic. Most of people in Australia call them take fives, or sometimes in the U.S. I think they call them take 10s or take 2s, whatever the title might be, but personal risk assessments. We've done a lot of and seen a lot of success through doing workplace inspections, safety conversations or safety interactions, what we would call safety contacts, are a couple of very, very common workshops that we run. Third question is, how do CI teams measure success? That varies based on the topic. When we facilitate the CI team, one of the things that we try to lead the participants to do is to identify measures that, number one, they believe in, that will mean something to their organization, not just the leadership, but also to the frontline workforce. And we would engage them in conversations to identify a quantitative measurement and a qualitative measurement. So don't just measure that people are having safety meetings. Let's identify how we're going to measure the quality of the safety meetings and the quality of a supervisor or manager's performance around those safety meetings. And that can look like having conversations. It can look like engaging leadership. The best way for a manager to determine whether or not a supervisor is having good quality safety meetings is that that manager also engage in those safety meetings on some frequency. The best way for an executive leader, like a department manager or maybe a vice president of some type, managing director of some type, the best way for he or she to identify that a manager and supervisors are engaged at the level they need to be and having good quality safety meetings, or fill in that blank with any topic, is that that executive leader engage in some frequency and see for themselves through observation. So it's that performance, observation, accountability-based safety that really makes the difference. And so it varies widely based on the topic. And the final question currently on the list is, what recommendations do you have for working with passionate resistors? Again, a very, very good question. I think you've probably been through some change management training, whoever asked that question at some point. With any change, you will always have resistance. And the idea of change management is that we take people with us along the journey. So identifying the resistance, part of it is through the safety perception survey and through the interview process. What we find in our experience is once you engage those people in the process, once they see the benefits, then you begin to very slowly whittle away at the resistance that's occurring. There's a reason that people resist, because they don't believe that maybe from a safety perspective, they only believe that management is concerned about the numbers, or they only believe that a supervisor is concerned about production, or they're resisting because they weren't asked to be involved. Nobody asked them what they thought about a new process or a new system. And the list can go on and on for the reasons that they resist. But the first thing is to identify why they are resisting. We do that if we run a rapid improvement workshop on safety meetings. The first step we do is a root cause analysis to determine what is working with the current safety meetings, what is not working with the current safety meetings. And we use a lot of Six Sigma tools, whether it's a fault tree analysis, whether it's 5 whys, whether we go through FMEA, whether we do diverge, converge, all types of assessment tools. We identify where the resistance is coming from and why this system is not currently working. Once we've identified what's not working, then with that group of hourly workforce, we will make sure that those are outcomes of that specific rapid improvement workshop. Whatever the resistance is becomes an outcome. We put things in the new process to make sure that we address the resistance. Hopefully that answered your question. Next question, do we have a process to certify Caterpillar safety professionals in dealerships, and what is the strategy for dealers to take safety to and add value to the customers? Again, a very, very good question. First part of that question is no, we do not currently have a process to certify safety professionals within dealerships. A dealer is a customer of ours, just like internal Caterpillar is a customer of ours, just like an external customer is. We will work with you as a dealer, and through the process of engaging in that journey with us, we begin to certify you so you can do it yourself long term. And as far as a strategy for dealers to take safety and add value to our customers, part of the process that we have is, if we can, as dealers are selling equipment and are selling technology, we kind of like to look at it as a full solution. If you think back to the graphic I showed you, Caterpillar and dealers, we sell you equipment and we sell you technology as a customer. We can also sell you training. We can provide training for your operators. We can also provide some job site solutions for you. And we can also provide cultural solutions for you. A full solution-based set that adds customer loyalty. If you think Cat Finance is another type of customer loyalty thing that we do within Caterpillar. So it just increases their ability and probably their likelihood to come back to Caterpillar. So there's not a specific strategy, but one of the things that we have found that's necessary is for a dealer to take safety services and to begin to discuss safety services with a specific customer. It's very important for that dealer to have experience in those safety services. So customers typically, we've had customers ask dealers already, well, what are you doing with the system? How do you engage with safety services within your organization? And if the dealer says we haven't, it's very difficult to engage in a further conversation with that customer with credibility. As you can think, it would be very quick for that customer to think in their mind, well, if safety service is so good and so valuable, why aren't you doing it? So hopefully that answered your question. If not, please submit and we'll try to answer it again. Next question. Can you explain how your process may leverage safety-related data from CAT equipment in your continuous improvement process? Again, another very good question. We look at the data from like CAT Connect or through the safety block of CAT Connect or through the technology solution in MindStar, which is the detect component. We can take that data because it tells you a story. What we do find, though, is there are a lot of customers that don't use the data. And if they do use it, they use it as a big stick for their employees. An operator induced code on a piece of equipment, then somebody goes and jumps all over that operator and has a negative conversation with that operator about the thing that they did, which may be necessary. I'm not saying that's not necessary to correct behavior. It's definitely a component of helping to create safety excellence. But then what do we do with the data afterwards? And so within Caterpillar Safety Services, we can take, whether it's an inclinometer data, whether it's speed data, whether it's lifting and turning data, whether it's fatigue data from a fatigue monitoring system like Sieg machines through our alliance agreement with them, whatever the data might be, we can take that data and analyze the data and help a customer understand the value it brings to them as an organization, rather than just a one-time event. What's the data tell you? What's the story? Coupled with the safety perception data, it gives you operator-based data and it gives you perception-based data, which really gauges the health of your organization. And we can help you with the cultural solutions to help improve performance based around that. Next question, how does Caterpillar differentiate from other companies such as DuPont who offer the same consulting services? A very frequent question, and I'm glad somebody asked it. We definitely think we're differentiated in the marketplace. I don't want to talk much about what DuPont or other consulting companies do or don't do. I'll talk because they're good companies. They've been around for a while and they do good work. We differentiate ourselves through the level of accountability that we build in the system. If you think back to the chart, the graphic that I showed you, culture, norms, attitudes, beliefs, and ideas, at-risk behavior leads to incidents. The change in culture is not that we create a bunch of new policies and procedures. The fact remains is that those policies, procedures, and processes around safety were created by some pretty smart people. Leadership, environmental health and safety professionals. And most of the time, 90% of those things are correct. The fact remains, though, is that traditionally we don't engage the right people in creating them and understanding them before we deploy them into our organization. So as we engage people in a very, very strategic way, in letting the frontline workforce that's closest to the risk, because safety is intended to benefit them the most. Safety is not intended to benefit the leader, the CEO that sits in office and probably is very seldomly exposed to risk, not near as much as someone that works and exposed to it every day. But the more we engage those closest to the risk, the higher level of buy-in that we get. They own the processes and they will make sure that they work. We say that from safety culture standpoint, support, funding, and resources have to be top down. Accountability has to be bottom up. If the supervisor is doing things to help improve the perception of his workers around safety, what better way than to ask his workers or her workers what that supervisor should be doing that's going to change my perception? So our differentiation is, number one, our perception survey is statistically validated. It's been over 2 million people take that survey since it's been in existence. Number two, we have a high level of leadership training and executive coaching, and we do a really good job building accountabilities, what people do, not just focusing on behavior, but we look at performance. How are they performing on a daily basis from a quantitative and a qualitative way? And we do that in a continuous improvement process that yields results, and the results speak for themselves. And I think we had another question just came through. Are you offering your services free of charge to CAT dealers? If not, what are the charges? Two questions. First question, simply no, it's not free. Stuff that you can access through safety.cat.com. There are things on the website that are free of charge. There are things that you can purchase directly through the website. The consulting services that we have are not free of charge. To answer your the second question is there's really not a good answer for that. Charges depend on the level of complexity, the amount of consulting work that the customer would want, or the dealer in this case would want, how many days you would have a consultant on site, how much training is involved in the contract, whether you're purchasing products or not purchasing products, whether we just bring the training to you, but you don't actually purchase the product. All of those things impact. I'll give you an example cost. Safety perception survey. It's based on how many employees take it, how many locations you have, how many report outs that you want. If you have a location, say, in Western Australia, and you have one or maybe 3 locations in WA that are separated by geographical distance and completely separate management groups, and generally the cultures in those areas are probably different. And so you may separate a safety perception survey and have report outs at all 3 locations. If that's the case, that's going to increase the cost. So the cost can vary by a lot of different parameters. Be more than happy to discuss whoever asked the question, your specific situation, we can discuss offline. Next question, is there an assessment or audit similar to the STAR system to identify the level of safety culture or awareness? We don't have it inside of Caterpillar Safety Services. We utilize the data from the Safety Perception Survey, and we take your first survey, your baseline survey, and each time you administer the survey, we compare the results back for each category and overall. If internally you wanted to develop a STAR system, we could help you develop that, but we don't have it as an offering that we would provide to customers. And I think that is all of the questions. I do appreciate your time. Appreciate you signing on. You can see my specific contact information on here, my email address, Haskins_Brett_M@cat.com, and then my office line here in Melbourne. If you have specific questions for me, feel free to send me an email at any time. Feel free to call my office line, leave me a voicemail if I don't answer at any time. I am on the road quite often, so I would ask that you be patient. If you call my office line, the best way to contact me would be through email. I can respond to it more rapidly. And if you have general inquiries about just safety services in general, we have a general inquiry email set up for safetyservices@cat.com. And you can send that, and we would direct that question to the specific person within our safety services team that can more accurately answer your question. So thanks for your time. Thanks for signing on. And just so everyone's aware, this is a webinar type system that we're trying to begin to start up within Asia Pacific region to be a little bit more appropriate times for you guys to call in. And we're going to try to do it at least once a quarter to start off with. And we could increase that frequency based off the response and the request as we go forward. But thanks again for calling in, and hope you have a great day.